Hi, I'm Nikki Cuthbertson, and a lot of you within my community know me as an animal intuitive. I've done a lot of readings for a lot of you, and a lot of you don't know that I do readings for humans as well. And I'm inclined to call them soul readings, but really it's a connection with your inner being and kind of the inner whispering of what your heart and your soul is trying to communicate to you. There isn't a whole lot of difference between the way animals speak and the way spirit speaks to us. And part of what I feel my job is to really connect with the essence of whether it's the animal or whether it's the human, and their message, their desires, their wishes. It's a way of being able to, through clear seeing, be able to read into the place where there is a heart message and not project my vision onto somebody. I think a lot of us are working with our old projections that have come with us and followed us through childhood. And it's the same with the animals. A lot of them have been domesticated as we have as well. And in the domestication process, there's a way that we give up a little bit of who we think we can be and also get projected into the ideas of who we ought to be in order to be a decent human being. So years of doing this work has led me to being able to go back to the animal or the person's essential nature, where there's no projections, it's just a clean slate. And I feel that my job has been murky over the past few years, in that I've gone back and forth between reading humans, reading animals, doing spirit readings for people that have crossed over. And as of late, I just realized it's all the same thing. It's all energy that I'm reading and working with the nature of a being or their beingness quality. And in communicating with that aspect, there's a way that I've had to go through the release of my own filters in my own life. And that has been not a whole lot different than working with, like a photo editor program where there's these different filters and different colors that we can put on, and we can make and create the vision to be anything we want it to be. And yet when I'm communicating with an animal or with a human within a session, there's a way that everything is just stripped down into its essential nature, and it's good enough and it's pure enough, and it's really beautiful to me, even if what I'm working with is a tragedy. It might be that somebody is working with a disease process or a tremendous loss, or an animal is about to be put down and they're about to say goodbye, and maybe their work feels unfinished. That's kind of the nature of being here, is kind of being with the place where there's so much to do and experience here, so much beauty, and at the same time the portal to the other side all calls us at some time. And a lot of our work, a lot of the play is around being able to ground and anchor the light that is kind of cosmic, everywhere, infinite in nature, and grounded in our lives. And also answer the call when that other side calls us and beckons us into completion. We'll never really have that sense of completion. It's an ongoing and eternal process. But anyways, I just thought I would start this video only because I myself have been so murky about what it is that I think I offer. And really, I think the word connection really sums it up. It may be somewhat of an inadequate definition of what I do, but it's the connection of our inner being, the connection of our the whisperings of our soul to our personality self, and also the whispering of your animals. What all of them have in common is that, at least for me in my experience, is that there's a way that the communication happens through images and through a lot of feeling tones in my body and the kinesthetic sensations, the emotional states, and I really believe that animals and spirit connects to us, communicates through us through the language of emotion more than anything. I think our language of emotion holds a certain frequency that is universal, that all of us understand and can translate in one capacity or another. And again, I think each of us have a different capacity to be able to do that. I think the hardest thing is to get rid of the filter and the projections that we have around our story and our history and our traumas, and just being able to get a really clean, clear read. Clear visioning really comes from a transparency of the heart and a willingness to communicate from the heart. I've said it a lot of times in my work with in workshops that it's really being able to read through the perspective of the heart as a satellite dish, trying to capture emotions and energy and doing the translations. And there's a knowingness quality that all of us have built into us through our heart as the navigational system. And from that place later, I think the mentation, our mental faculties can come in and do another layer of analysis around whether we're making something up, whether we're projecting, whether we're wishing it were a certain way, really trying to get clear the difference between our desires versus a clear communication. And for me, it's taking years and years and years to kind of discern the difference. I think it's a work in progress, and that's where I come in. Is I've done a fair amount of that over the past few years. And so it helps to have somebody that's kind of neutral come into a really intense situation when we feel challenged to do a reading, which a lot of times just comes through as a validation of what somebody already knows, because they too have that innate ability to navigate through this life with their own knowingness. And but sometimes I think the validation is all that we need. And when I can validate on behalf of an animal who doesn't use the language of words, I think that there's a lot of fulfillment and gratitude for me, because there's a way that they can maybe get their needs met around being able to say yes to chemotherapy, say no to chemotherapy, say yes to an amputation, say no to this feed, I don't like it, say yes to this saddle, I like it, say no to this person who is my pet sitter, I don't like them. And being able to state their preference increases the quality of their life. And a lot of you might already have an innate sense, and then there's a way that because we're so close to our animal, or so close to our mother, our father, our grandmother that passed over, that we begin to negate the message because we think we are making it up because we already knew that that was their favorite bone or their favorite toy or their favorite bed. So I think what's really beautiful for me in doing this work is that this work is built on transparency and honesty. I think the animals keep us honest. I love that about working with them. I wouldn't want it any other way. I think that in that honesty, what I have found more and more and more is that as I do the work, I think that I'm reading their energy field, and what happens is that they're reading mine. There's a way that as I open up to their heart and them as a portal of love and reflection of, one, their own personality, and two, the connection to their being, their human being, their guardian, their steward in this life, there's a way they have access to my energy field. And so there's a certain beauty around this, I don't know, for lack of a better word, it's like this two-way stream of light, and they begin pulling on my own history, my own life experience to say, it looks like that, it feels like that injury that you've had, or it feels like that loss you've had, or it feels like that craving in your body for salty food or sugary foods. And there's a certain dialogue that begins to happen between me and the animal that is also for the greater good for them and for their person, but it's also really personal in that they have this felt sense of who I am. And I think one of the biggest wounds that most of us have is not really being able to be fully seen. A lot of us growing up, you know, for better or for worse, weren't seen completely in the light we were. We were all, just like the animals, have gone through a certain domestication process in which we are in relationship, and in that relationship we give a little bit up of some of the purity of the way we want to be seen. And part of the healing of doing animal communication, at least on my part, has been they really see us. They see the transparency and the filters that we put up for our own protection, and they're willing to both respect that and see under it. And I think part of kind of in sharing the story, what I realize is that I guess I see a lot the way animals do. I see under the protective mechanism that most of us have in place to keep our ego intact, to, you know, it's for self-preservation, and to love that part of yourselves that is either imperfect or damaged or wounded or feeling incomplete, and being able to love that aspect of yourself. If you've never had that experience, I think is really healing. And I think that's what most of us love about having our animals in our lives, is that when you come home after going to work, you don't need to put on any persona to be with your animal. You can get on the floor, you can spoon them, you can do kissy face. It really doesn't matter. You can let go of any images of professionality or I don't know, it's just, there's a purity to being able to share this life with them and be seen for who we are, but see them for who they are. It didn't really matter that they really peed on the rug, because we're going to love them anyways. And there's a way that begins to draw out something unconditional in our expression. And for whatever reason, I think it feels safer to do it with our animals. But there's a really beautiful way that when that can bleed over into the way we love a parent that is on their way out and declining, and you're the caretaker, and maybe you didn't get from them what you're offering to them, I think it's healing. I think it's really healing when you can do that for a sibling that you haven't talked to for a long time, or your spouse that you're in disagreement with. And the animals teach us how to be unconditional, and yet there's also something so beautiful about the way they have a very primal communication and very physical, whether it's a bite, a growl, a kick out, and it's not to be taken personally. It's a display of their truth. And I think that when we can be with anybody's truth, whether it's beautiful, eloquent, elegant, or ugly, without judging it and just receiving it, there's a way that we begin to hold space for their process. And that very much is what the animals do to us. They hold space for our process, and it's a very healing thing. So anyways, I guess with this first video, I wanted to just share some thoughts around the differences and the similarities between doing readings for humans and doing readings for animals. I don't think there's a whole lot of difference. I think that all of us are perfect and pure in our imperfection and in our very essence. I think that a work in progress is for all of us to begin to love the parts of us that are impatient, love the parts of us that feel jealous or threatened, whatever the word is that causes us to contract and begin to cause us to feel small. And just go into that larger part of us where we know that everything is perfect, the way our animals know that all their needs are met through us. We can too be in that place that all of our needs can be met through kind of surrendering to this larger part of who we are. And for some of you, that might be a more spiritual experience outside of you, and for others of you, it might be that you connect really deeply into the stillness and in the silence of your inner being. And however you do it, there's a certain resonance that starts happening with the silence, the quietude that begin to quiet and still some of the chatter that brings that contraction down for us. So you might feel that in your solar plexus, you might feel it in your throat or your neck, but for most of us it's a really kinesthetic thing. And when you begin to expand, and it helps when you're petting an animal or you're listening to them purr or you're grooming a horse, we begin to soften and to surrender and simply allow this other energy that is also us to come forth. It's a way of summoning it forth. And in that way, I think that our animals are just this absolute unconditional gift. They're the greater reminder of how to love and how to be loved. Anyways, thank you so much for your time, and I'll send out a couple more videos over time. If you have any questions about what I do, how I do it, anything that you want me to post on video that would be educational or informative, I'd love to hear from you. You can find my website, www.nikkicuthbertson.com, or you can find me on Facebook, and it is either Nikki Cuthbertson or Nikki Cuthbertson Intuitive Soul Support for humans and their animals. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.